Welcome to another episode of The Dirty Negative.
Yeah, welcome everybody.
Do the intro. Do the
Hello
intro,
everyone, I hope you're well. And welcome to another show with me and Eltel. Today we have the fantastic photographer Ben Horne, all the way from California. Really looking forward to this one because I appreciate Ben's work anyway. And oh, by the way, if you hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, and jingle bells all in the same, you know, and then people laughing, that is the power.
Yeah, the laughing is what gets me. It's like canned laughter. It's great.
Yeah. So, well, actually, he's mimicked the wife's laughter very well.
Okay. I thought that. I thought she was in the room earlier.
So, yeah, I do apologise. But when I'm, he just, I don't notice. And obviously off he goes. So that's Ollie, everybody. Ollie will be a regular presenter on the show.
He should have his own little camera and have his own.
We could sort something out in the future.
Oh, that would be ace, wouldn't it?
Questions with Ollie.
He'd probably be a better interviewer than us two.
Yeah, well, absolutely, absolutely. Anyway, how's your week been?
My week's been all right, mate. I say it's been all right. I was up all night and I had 2 hours sleep last night, not through partying or anything else, just through pain. And I just went, oh, I'm not working today. That's it. I've got to work in the afternoon. Obviously, we're doing this and everything else, but I was just like, the morning, that's it. No, I'm just beauties of working for yourself. It's just, yeah.
Yes.
Or is that the downfall? Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Oh, it's nice to work for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I totally agree with that. But yeah, so I've sort of been all over the place, really, doing stuff and editing and nice. What about you, mate? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I've been a lot of work going on in my mind with an exhibition for next year, and
you were at a castle, weren't you, the other day?
I was.
Raglan Castle. I love that place.
Yeah, with my other side of my work, flying birds, and now the dog's at it. Unbelievable. I was doing some demonstration work with the team yesterday, which went well actually. Met some nice people from around the world. It was a nice day, and the birds flew well, and plugged a little bit more of the stuff with the conservation work and the Poland stuff. But anyway, without further ado,
I'll tell you what I had to do on the weekend. So my wife does rowing,
right?
And I got volunteered for doing the annual club photograph of everyone.
I thought you was going to say I was the cock. Is it the cocks?
Cocks, yeah. Mate, I've done rowing. I love rowing. I like to row single rather than in a team because it's too much to. Yeah. Anyway, that's a separate story. And I'm a fair weather rower. I don't do winter. So she volunteered me to do the club photo. So I get there, and I was on the way there, and it had been arranged for a month or two, and they got everyone there. So there's 70 odd people, something like that, 60 people. And on the way there, I was thinking, he said he wanted it on the steps of the club. Well, that's the steps into the river. Right. Where the bloody hell am I going? I was like, and then I got there and I looked the other side, and there's a bank the other side of the river, which is fine, but it's covered in trees. I'm like, I can't shoot through that. And it's like, no, we'll get you out on the launch. It'll be fine. You'll stand up on the back of that. You'll be all right. I'm like, someone please record this just in case I go right off the back of this thing. And yeah, it was forward and back and forwards trying to get the right position, and we keep going with the flow of the river. And yeah, no, it was a good laugh though.
What river?
River Severn.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, so it's but yeah, it worked out all right in the end. I got the shot. That's all that matters.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. It was funny. But anyway,
without further ado, shall we introduce Ben?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go on.
Okay, well, episode 2, and I would like to invite Ben Horne on the show. Thank you so much for coming, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, we spoke recently. Well, we spoke about. It's been in the last year, haven't we? And you did a little Q&A for me personally,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
which was great. And as I say, I've been looking at everything you've been doing. It's a real pleasure to have you on.
Nice.
We're very lucky that you've come on, and yeah, basically, what we're gonna just ask you a few questions, and if there's anything you want to talk about in your own career in the future that you want to, plug or anything like that, go ahead. But the first question I'd like to ask you, Ben, is what is it about Utah really that you love so much, and why the southwest of America all the time, and not venturing to other parts of the states or even going abroad, maybe?
Well, there's something about the desert areas that I love. Something about like the wide open spaces. Something about the simplicity of things, the open horizons. But also there's a lot of diversity in those areas. Like you have these areas that are just really barren. Then you have these canyons that are lush down in there, and there's a wonderful variety of places to go out there. And also it's not too far from where I live. I mean, it can be out to Utah. It's about an 8-hour drive from where I live. But it's a pretty quick drive in the scheme of things. But part of it is proximity. Part of it is the openness of the desert. It's also an area that just begs to be explored. It's not a super fragile area. It's not like you're going through some forest where you feel bad, going off the path, and you feel like you're going to be like, leaving a mark and creating new trails and stuff like that. Uh, it's an area that's really open to wandering. And if you see something, chances are you can probably get to that spot. So there's a little bit of a challenge involved for that as well. But also, it's so different from where I live. I mean, the area where I live here in San Diego, we have, we're right along the coast, so we have the beaches, and then we have some not big mountains, but there's some mountains, and the other side of the mountains there's some desert. But it's very brown here. It's very kind of like rolling hills, not very colorful, not very dramatic. So to be able to hop in your car, drive for 8 hours, and then go to an area where you have these colorful rocks and these crazy trees with so much character. There's seasons as well over in Utah. We don't really have seasons as much here in San Diego. It's just kind of the same all the time for the most part. So I think just all those things combined, it's just like going to a whole different world and an area where you can just spend so much time exploring and finding new places. And there's canyons that don't even have names, which is kind of fun to just go and check out some of these areas. So, I think it's just all those things combined.
It is a fascinating. I mean, I've lived in that part of the world where you're based, and so are you Orange County or is that further north?
I'm Orange County is north of me. San Diego is like right along the Mexican border, so we're as far south as you can get.
But it is very arid in California at times, isn't it? And it can be very brown, and then you get up on, and then you're basically heading. But when you get to Utah, it is quite a stunning sort of difference, isn't it? It sort of smacks you in the face in the
Oh yeah.
respect of the color of the topography and the rock color, and it's. Oh, by the way, obviously for us in the UK, 8 hours is hell of a journey, to be honest
You
with
know
you.
what? I was going to mention that because you said that 8 hours like it was nothing. I have to go 2 hours down the road into the city, and I'm like, no way I'm going to do that journey. I need 3 days for that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all relative because, like, if I were to go just north from here for about 2 hours, we hit Los Angeles, and then it's just, it's very just congested and everything. That's a long 2 hours. But if you're cruising through the desert, at a pretty good speed, and it's just open country, those 8 hours go by pretty fast. And if one was to, I mean, I can drive, since basically San Diego is right on the Mexican border, and then at the far extreme northern edge of California is where the redwoods are. I mean, that is a long drive, the length of California. I mean, it'll be evening by the time I get there if I leave fairly early in the morning. So yeah, it's a pretty pretty big state. So we're kind of accustomed to those drives, but when you're going through the desert, those miles and those hours go by pretty fast.
And as like, it just brings back so many memories from years ago when I was there, and like you see the big dust storms where they're circling as you're driving down the road, and massive thunderstorms sometimes. And
oh yeah, during the summertime, the monsoon stuff over from Arizona kind of creeps our way, so you get this big thunder storms over the mountains, and like you said, over some of the dry lake beds out in the desert, you get the dust storms and all kinds of stuff there. So it's a very alive place for what just seems like just barren nothingness. It's very alive.
Do you ever stop in Vegas on the way?
I fly through Vegas as fast as possible. Oh. Yeah, I plan my gas station visits to before I get to Vegas so I can fly through there. And actually, when I love early morning drives. And so, like, if I'm in Zion and if it's my last day in Zion National Park and I'm going to be heading back to San Diego the next day and I have that 8-hour drive ahead of me, I leave at local time in Utah at about 1 a.m. or so. And so I can be back in San Diego it's still morning by the time I get back here.
Yeah.
But flying through Vegas, basically, I'm driving through Vegas, but feels like I'm flying through there because the freeways are wide open. But yeah, going through when all the city lights are still on. But yeah, just straight through. No desire to stop there. It's just congested.
Well, at least you see it with the lights on, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. It's you see it when it's all glittering and sparkling and all that.
Yeah, it's a funny place, Vegas. The food's not very healthy either, Ben.
I wouldn't imagine it is. There's definitely the feeding troughs of the buffet lines and such going on there.
I've got to be honest. But,
you guys are too healthy. Just give me a Denny's and we're fine. It's like...
As I say, it was a long time ago. I mean, it was a long. It must have changed. It must have grown massively since I was there in '97.
Oh yeah, so, yeah. It's a very fast growing area. Just all the communities and all that. Yeah.
Well, go on, Terry.
Well, actually, I was going on from that. Actually, one of the things we're talking about you going for the Southwest. I think you have a very distinctive style in your photography, and was that a conscious decision? Like, this is what I love doing, or this is the simplicity of the scene, or what the colors? Was it? Yeah, tell me more.
Well, I think there's something to be said about just finding simplicity in nature, as you were saying, because I especially a lot of these areas you go to, there's just, no matter where you go if you're taking pictures, it's chaos for the most part. And trying to find whatever it is that stands out, it usually stands out for the sake of simplicity, whether it's like some tree against this nice clean wall or whatever it is that, I happen to stumble upon. But I do have a little bit of a background in graphic design. That's what I went to college for. And a lot of that is a matter of, you have all these various elements and you're trying to organize them in a way where it is, directs the person's eye from the most important thing to the, slightly less important thing. And so it's just ordering the madness of things. One of the things I really enjoyed when I was working with design stuff is just simply working with type, nothing else, just simply type, and that's it. And there's so much you can do as far as the hierarchy of things. And I think there's a lot of similarities when it comes to photography where, you want the person to see perhaps the most important thing, which then leads to these smaller supporting things. And so for me, when I see a subject that has a lot of potential, maybe it's the character of it, the tree or the way the rocks are, or whatever it is, I'll see something that grabs my attention, but then to try to figure out how to compose it in a way that simplifies it and distills it down. I think that process is also further enhanced by working with a large format camera where it will also slow you down more, and you spend time looking at that image on the ground glass and debating things and everything else along those lines. So I think it's partially because of wanting to organize the chaos of nature, partially because of working with a large format, but also with the large format setup, there's a lot of things that just would be very difficult to photograph because they're moving too fast, they're changing too fast, limitations of focal length, anything like that, where that also narrows things down in terms of here's a subject that is pretty simple that I know will work really well with the camera I'm using. And so I think those limitations also play a role in that.
That
So
must
I think
be
it's all those things.
that must be easier for you as a photographer. Some photographers go out and go, see what's around, then I'll photograph that. But you seem to have a focus and going for that simplicity. Is that making it easier for you when you go out to these locations to go, right, let's look for the simplest thing first, and then we'll work from that and work out how I can tell that story of that?
Yeah, I think it does because I think it gives a sense of direction. I mean, if I'm somewhere and there's just tons of things going on all over the place, my eyes just kind of glaze over and you see nothing for the most part because everything all starts looking the same. But then you see something that looks like it has potential for one reason or another, and I always carry with me this little a little framing device in my pocket. It's called the Artist View Catcher. You can find them on Amazon and probably other places as well. And I'll just hold that up and I just look through it to put a rectangle on the scene. And you know right away if that, sometimes that subject is going to look great, but there's just not going to be a clean composition for it. But sometimes I'll hold that up and I'll just have that feeling right away that not only is this a good subject, but I also know that there's a very good composition here. And at that point, you just got to start thinking about when's the light going to be really good on this subject? What other conditions do I need to have for this? And so when I'm out wandering around, I'm constantly pulling that out and testing the subject to see how it's going to be. And then in the back of my mind, I'm coming up with this plan. So I'm not really thinking about all the things out there that, one could photograph. I'm really thinking about the things that I actually can photograph. And then having that Rolodex in my mind in terms of, there's clouds today. The light's not going to be good for this, but maybe after the sun sets, I'll photograph this thing on the ground over here. So even though it feels like or it might seem like there's a lot of limitations, and they're actually good because they guide me to find the things I really can work with. So I end up with like a really high keeper rate in terms of, I can photograph like 8 subjects and maybe 6 of them end up as portfolio images, which is kind of crazy.
I totally get that now because I only shoot large format, and it is quite astonishing. Basically, what you've just put into words, I said this on the last one, but I couldn't put that into words, to be honest, because it is astonishing how many you retain based on what you can actually do with the kit, because you know what your limitations are, don't you?
Yeah.
In some respects. But I also think, and I noticed this with your video stuff, is that you're so tuned into the environment. And I think a lot of that is, that's experience over the years of keep returning to the same place. But having that, I know a lot of people say like your camera is an extension of your eye and your arm, that, but I do really think that it's even more so when you're shooting large format, because you can only work with them limitations, if you know what I mean, and even more so stuff like wind. That's really, you've put that really well, I think.
Yeah, and one of the things I've learned through the years is that there is potential everywhere, and it's just a matter of learning to recognize. I mean, there are things like if I'm hiking, from where I'm parked to, like, for example, on the backpacking trips where I know I'm going to be camping for the night. Let's say it's a several hour hike in order to get there. I know that in the process of hiking, along that route, there's countless things along the way that would make for a good photograph. But I might be more in the mentality of I just got to get to camp, get things set up, and then I'll be more in the mentality of, okay, now let's start finding stuff. But to know that you're just surrounded by opportunity no matter where you go. As an example, I saw, I don't know, maybe it's on Threads or something like that, but someone was asking about, sky replacement. Like, oh, is it bad to like replace a sky if the photo is otherwise good and all that? I'm like, I didn't respond. I'm just lurking on there, but like, to me, it doesn't matter. Do whatever you want to do. I don't care. But if I see that there's a photo that doesn't work because the sky isn't as interesting enough, I see that more as a sign that the photographer was not as open to their surroundings, and there was probably something that was really good that was nearby them that would have been working with the exact conditions as they are, that they could have, maybe it was something at their feet. Maybe there was like some cool looking like rocks on the ground or something that was like 10 feet away from them. And they didn't see that. They were stuck on this idea that you have to photograph this grand scene, but the conditions just weren't ideal for it. Or maybe it's just, you don't need clouds, or maybe an open sky is perfectly fine. But to me, I see that as just not being as aware of their surroundings, because chances are another photographer could stand next to them and find something. And that's
I'm
one
a
of the things
firm believer that wherever you go as a photographer, if you want to take a photo, there's a photo there to be taken.
Oh yeah.
No matter where you
sure.
go. And
Yeah.
it does. I just don't get it sometimes when people go, yeah, the weather was wrong. There was nothing there to photograph. And I get why they do it, because they have a focus. I only want to take this picture or this style picture and nothing else will do. But I always think there's something there. Always. Because nature and everything else is so beautiful. There's always something.
Yeah, I think that's something that when people are new to photography, they don't see the possibilities around them as much. Oftentimes, maybe they're fixated on one thing or another, and it's not such a bad thing. I mean, maybe being fixated on one thing at some point leads to discovering something else. I mean, I know when I was first getting into photography, there was this one place I really wanted to go photograph, and I went there. I took pictures of it. I don't even have the pictures on their website. They're not that great. But in the process of going to that iconic area that everyone else goes to, I kind of found some other areas nearby. And then it's one of those photos of a subject that was nearby that became one of my first portfolio photos, a non-iconic scene. So sometimes having that mentality of chasing a photo is the first stages of learning to find your own subjects. But it would be hard to tell the person that in the moment, because they're fixated on something, but it's part of the process, I think.
Yeah.
I saw now I'm not sure if you're if you know Nick Carver personally. Is it Nick Carver?
Yeah, actually I was talking to him yesterday on a
Nick
podcast.
Makes me laugh, right? And I really want to get Nick on this podcast, and I've only ever spoken to Nick via email, and I've got to tell everyone what actually happened, because he's quite a character, and you get that through watching his videos. But I thought, well, Nick reminded me when he had longer hair of, is it Ray Liotta? Out of Goodfellas.
Goodfellas, yeah.
Yeah. I could tell you, yeah.
Well, so I sent him an email and I said, Ian, you're a funny guy. I don't know if you've ever seen Goodfellas.
I know the reference.
Yeah. And I was like, you're a funny guy. And he said, and he emailed me back saying, do I amuse you? Do I? and I just thought, what a funny lad. But he was recently in Yosemite, another place where, I've personally been. And it's just, you talk about iconic vistas, and you get up the top, there were just people everywhere. Yeah. And you just think, oh my goodness, like it is the last place I'd ever want to go on earth now, just because you can't, you couldn't go there and enjoy. I couldn't enjoy it. It was just unbelievable how many people were standing there. And I think with what you've achieved at Zion, because you'll understand that from Zion, is, everyone goes, is it the Narrows?
The Narrows, one of the main hikes, yeah.
But I really think that, with Utah and what you're achieving with that landscape is is very good, because there is so much else to go and find, but no one wants to explore it like that, do they? And yet you come up with this wonderful, fresh stuff all the time. And I
Yeah,
just
but
think
that's the beauty. We don't have to go and explore it now because he takes us along, and it's just we can. I had this thing when I was younger. We were sitting out in Donegal, a house overlooking the coast, and my dad said to my aunt, he said, "You know what? You should get up in the morning and just the sunrise is just so beautiful coming up over there and everything lighting up." And she turned around to him and go, "Why do I need to get up at that time of the morning when there are idiots like him that will go and photograph it for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know what? You're dead right. But that's like you go trekking all around there. I'm not going to go trekking. And you do it for me, which is fantastic." And, I've got a question on this. And you're quite unique in terms of you built a following on YouTube. And the strange thing was when Lewis told me you were going to do this, it's like, I recognize that name, but it didn't. And then I started to look you up and I was like, I've been following you for bloody years, watching your journeys like this. I was like, oh, yeah. But what has YouTube given you, besides probably anxiety and everything else, but reach and everything else? What's it given you as a photographer over what most people would get as a photographer?
In terms of what has YouTube,
I don't know. What's it done for you for your photography? Has it made you want to go out and explore more? Has it made you be able to go and explore more because you wouldn't necessarily have done that because it's very difficult as a landscape photographer to make it unless you branch out doing stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this for a living without YouTube. Just from the standpoint that it gives that outlet of being able to tell the story of the trips. When I graduated from college, I graduated from college in 2004. I worked at a camera store for 16 years after graduating. But when I graduated from college, YouTube didn't exist. I think it was 2006 or so that YouTube came out, and it was still very, very small back then. But I enjoyed doing landscape photography, but there was no real way of making money off of it. I mean, not unless you're like the top of the top in terms of, represented by big galleries and stuff like that. And that just becomes a big ordeal that just wouldn't have been all that great. But then, then comes along YouTube, and it was in 2009 I started doing that. And back then you weren't even able to monetize things. So it still wasn't really seen as a way of making money or anything like that. I started putting the videos on there just because it would accompany the blog posts that I was writing about the solo trips I had just started going on. So it was a creative endeavor. And I've always seen it that way. Even now, like I don't have ads turned on because I just don't like the influence that has, because it kind of puts you down that clickbait path and everything where you're rewarded by the number of views you get and all that sort of stuff, which to me makes it work.
Is that what's led you into the Patreon then?
Yeah, actually back in, I think it was 2010, is when I started with like a PayPal subscription thing saying, hey, if you enjoy these, and you want to help me out. And I started that, I believe it was 2010. And that was, before Patreon came out. And then when Patreon came out, I moved to that as well. And I think there's a lot of people who just expect YouTube to be, full of interruptions, full of ads, which just really cuts into for the stuff I do. It's a lot of like long form videos, a lot of natural sounds, trying to make people feel like they're there along the trip. Then all of a sudden, if like an ad were to come on, it just, pull you right out of it again. And I hate that sense of interruption. And so I've just found that by not doing the ads, and by relying on community support and people enjoy the fact that there's no ads and stuff, it's not a formula that would work for most people. I think if anyone's starting now, they would also, I think it's just a product of me starting doing this when I started doing this. And also just staying away from all the gear related stuff, the top 10 tips and tricks and all that sort of stuff. Just avoiding, because I think people ultimately see through all that stuff. Yes, it gets a lot of eyes on you very quickly, but then do people stick around? Probably not. People will just end up probably outgrowing that for one reason or another. Or and a lot of times also it's putting out videos that are instructional for people that are just getting started with photography. But again, you're going to outgrow that audience, or that audience is going to outgrow you, and then they'll move on to something else. So one thing I found is by focusing just on the story and just having the videos just be basically a fly on the wall, just watching me work and do whatever I'm going to do in the field. I think that results in more of a long-term growth, not very quick growth, but just a slow, gradual, long-term growth. And I think
consistency is very key in what you do. In all fairness, there's so many YouTubers that have started one thing and you bought into that, and they've grown massive, and then they've gone off and done something else, and it's like, oh, I miss those days because I don't want to watch your content anymore.
Yeah,
because it's not why I fell in love with your work and everything else. And you've gone off doing these bits. Different if they started with that, but they didn't. They hooked me in on something else and then took it. And that happens so often. And you have been consistent.
I'm so consistent. I wear the exact same shirt for the past 5 years or so.
No comment.
It's like Steve Jobs.
I noticed the flies were following you around on the last one, Ben. I don't know if this is the same shirt or if it's the hat. And the scarf.
Yeah. I've added that as well. Because sunscreen doesn't work very well when you're in the field for like 7 days. It ends up combining with all sorts of like little bits of sand and stuff, and you're just exfoliating yourself when you really don't want to. So so I've added to the arsenal, but yeah, same shirt for a long time.
I needed to know.
Ben, on a serious note, right? Have you ever been out there and come across something like a mountain lion? Or honestly, because like I don't know if people realise how wild these places are, that you get these sort of animals, don't you?
Yeah, I will say that the mountain lions are I'd say they're my favorite animal, just because they're so elusive. They're pretty cool animals. I will see their tracks. I've never seen them. I know they've seen me. They typically stay away from people, but at the same time, we do get occasionally from time to time, since they're in a lot of our local mountains here too. Occasionally you'll run into a situation where there's a person who triggered their predatory ambush nature, like a person mountain biking, for example, and mountain lions like, ooh, I want to catch that. So yeah, we do get stories from time to time, but in reality, it's not really anything to be concerned with. It's something to be aware of. When I went on my recent backpacking trip, there was an area I was walking along, and there's some fresh mountain lion tracks in the wet mud, and you look down, and those tracks are, like 4 inches wide or something like that. I mean, they're pretty. You get a lot of respect for them when you see those.
They're going to keep away from you, though, aren't they? Really, and I suppose with a large format camera, you're not going to be running and belting to attract their attention.
Yeah, I am not going to be moving very quickly. Despite
it's the crossing paths, isn't it? That's because I said the same thing to Alex Burke once. Is it Alex Burke? And when he's up in the stupid, he's up at thousands of feet.
Yeah,
I was like, you must bump into bears. You must. And he was like, no, I never have.
I'm more terrified of bears.
I would be.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I mean, we've seen them on the trails when we were up in Glacier National Park. Yeah, it'd be just like a big old grizzly bear that was not far away. It's like, oh, hey, how's it going? We're gonna slowly
back the other way.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, the bears are more just interested in food. So obviously there's a lot of etiquette that comes with that. But the areas where I go backpacking and stuff, yeah, there's mountain lions. There's not really. It's not the typical habit for black bears, but a buddy of mine on a fall backpacking trip in the same canyon system where I was, he did see some black bear tracks. So I know that they can be there. but not. It would be very uncommon for them to be there. But I would be more concerned about, if I'm in grizzly bear habitat. Yeah, I'm not built for that.
Utah's not really that sort of country, is it? For grizzlies, it's not really forest.
No, that's more up north. That's more like
Yeah,
Montana, Wyoming,
yeah,
Idaho, up in those areas more so.
yeah.
Traditionally, like in long time ago, grizzly bears were all over North America, over the plains and everything. But then humans did what humans do, and now they're not as around as much.
Very good. I've been asked to ask a question, if that's all right, Ben, by a colleague of mine based in the UK who's got a developing business, and he develops my film actually. But he's asked me to ask you, all your work is colour based mainly.
Yeah,
I have never seen anything in black and white that you've produced.
not for a while.
He's asked me to ask you: is it going to be something that starts appearing more in your work? Are you thinking about doing any more black and white work in the respect of the stuff you're producing at the moment?
I really should, but in all honesty, I'm just not very comfortable with the process. I need to experiment with it more. With color, I know exactly how it's going to turn out. Basically, I'm very familiar with the film stocks that I work with for color. For black and white, I don't know. I feel like black and white is much more difficult than color. And I just haven't got to the point. I've experimented with it. I've done some of my own developing. I just haven't found the combination of things that gives me the sort of look that I'm going for. I find that when even a couple of years ago, I did a little bit of black and white in the field, just alongside the color that I was already photographing. And I developed the film, but when I scanned it, I don't know. I wasn't really happy with the results. I just wasn't getting the sort of tonality that I see that I think makes some of the black and white images just look so like almost dreamlike and dimensional and everything. They just were just kind of eh. So I know that there's so much more to the process that I just need to figure out. But I think also the areas I love to photograph, the light I love to photograph, it's all just so well suited for color that knowing what's going to work for a black and white photo and what won't work for a black and white photo is just so foreign to me in a way. So I really should work with it more, but I really haven't experimented enough with it.
And do you? I've got to throw this out there, just because obviously, when it comes to like doing these shots in the canyons and stuff like that, it is easier, isn't it? Because you ain't got to worry about the sky so much. When you're shooting on a slide film, it's much easier, isn't it?
It's very easy.
Yeah, and I'm like, I sit there and I think to myself, damn it, why can't I have that sort of stuff around me? It's so much easier.
Yeah, just so long as the weather's cooperating. Because like if there's even the slightest of a cloud in the sky, the light just shuts off. It's just really dull all of a sudden. But so long as you have good weather, so long as the wind is fairly calm, those canyon scenes, they'll just have like this beautiful light on them. You don't have to worry about sky. You don't have to worry about timing things. Like if I'm in Death Valley, for example, and I'm set up on a scene and I'm waiting for the golden light of sunset to hit some mountains in the background, and I don't know if there's gonna be clouds in the sky at the moment that the light is really good or whether the clouds are going to go away. I don't know if the sun's going to get blocked out by a cloud before the actual sunset. There's so many more variables in that where there's a very low likelihood of success. But that being said, when things do turn out, I'm very happy when things turn out, and they usually have a way of turning out. But I think that also has to do with being very familiar with the location and knowing the weather patterns for that location, and to look up at the sky at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and go like, I think this is going to be a good day for sunset if things continue the way that they continue.
I think that's
having
called
those hunches.
skill.
Yeah,
Was that?
it's
skill, mate. It's just you know your craft. You just understand, And that's part of
experience,
learning and evolving and taking it forward.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why returning to the same locations again and again, it gets so much easier with time because you learn to predict that sort of stuff. But then occasionally there'll be a surprise and something will go completely differently than you think, but you learn from that. I remember like the first trip or two I went to Death Valley. There was a particular photo I had in mind, which is largely based on some of the sort of iconic photos from Death Valley, where you have these salt flats and everything, and the mountains in the background, and I would go out there kind of day after day, set up for an evening photo, and then wait to have the conditions I wanted with like maybe like certain clouds in the sky or whatever it was I was going for. And then I don't know, like 3-4 days in a row, just get like nothing great happened with regard to the light. But each time that happened, I learned a little bit more about, okay, so it didn't work out this time, but this is why it didn't work out. And so eventually you learn to foresee those conditions and know whether, just before sunset, all of a sudden these clouds are going to build and snuff out all the light. So I think that comes with returning to a location again and again. There are some people that really crave the novelty of going to new locations all the time. That's great. It's not really my style. I would be really stressed out doing that. But to me, going to the same area again and again, you go there because you see things different each time. And you learn when things are special. Yeah.
Something you said about just the reason you're not stressed out is because of that. One of Lewis's questions was, what drugs does he take to make him so laid back? And it's the fact you keep returning to the same
I watch you for therapeutic reasons, mate. I'm like, man, this guy's he's so chilled out all the time. And like I used to listen to you and is it oh, for goodness sake. Who's the gentleman that you did the podcast with?
Oh, Cody?
Cody.
Yeah.
And like you two, it was just like, it was really nice. He's so you're so chilled out all the time. It's very nice.
Well, I think it's a matter of playing the long game because when it comes to especially Death Valley is that sort of place where, I will do everything I can to reduce the potential stress of things because ultimately, when photographing the landscape, we have obviously no control over everything, but my key is to get there early. If I'm going to take a evening photo, I usually like to be set up on my composition by maybe 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I can fine tune that to make sure that the composition is exactly the way I want it to be. I have no clue what the sky is going to look like at that point in time, but at least I'll know my composition's good. But then as the time gets a little bit closer, then you start seeing what is happening with the weather, and I'll start like dropping in maybe a graduated filter depending on what the sky is doing and everything. But I'll stick with that exact same composition that I set up at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon all the way through sunset and just photograph it as the light changes. But since the composition is already set, since I have plans in place for whatever is happening with the sky and stuff, it does lead to a very calm experience. And the light can be changing very quickly. And those that have worked with large format know it's a pain when you're trying to meter things at the last minute and things are changing and this and that. But if you have a system in place where if this happens, you do this. If this happens, you do that. It's kind of like a flow chart. It ends up being a very calm experience, even though things are changing very quickly. And that's something that is instilled by working with a large format. Because if I was not working with a large format, then you might abandon that photo you're thinking of to shoot this thing over your shoulder, then to turn around and look back and what you had originally set up is now looking really good, but now you have a sloppy composition, or you fail to change some setting or something like that. So working with the large format helps kind of give that Zen sort of state. And I think it's just something that comes out of necessity. But yeah, also, there's just a lot of time to kill out there. So there's a lot of time. It looks especially chill if I'm just sitting out there waiting for the light. I have literally nothing else to do. So, you're kind of forced into it.
Nice.
No, it is an art form. I think it's an art form shooting on these cameras these days. Like now,
Yeah.
I do it. It is definitely an art form, and it's the best thing that I have ever done in my life was
Yeah.
sell all my digital equipment and take the plunge because. Yeah, it's just. Can I just ask one more question? Why did you not stick at 4x5? Why did you decide to go bigger?
I started with the 4x5. I love the experience, but for whatever reason, I just knew in the back of my head that 8x10 was where I wanted to be. It's not as though I had like studied a lot of photographers in the past. I obviously knew of Ansel Adams and knew that he worked a lot with an 8x10, but I also worked with all sorts of other formats as well. But for whatever reason, it just seemed like 8x10 was the sweet spot in terms of if need be, you can scan that image to be whatever size you want. 4x5 is also excellent, but I think I had seen the limitations a little more of 4x5, and knowing that 8x10 you have even finer grain on the prints. And I think, at least in my mind, 8x10 gives you the highest quality image in a way that if you take a really good photo of something, good light, conditions are great, happy with the composition, I can walk away from that scene and feel good about it and feel like it's a timeless image. So I think that's part of it in a way. But I don't know. I've just something about it slows you down a little bit more than a 4x5. And I guess the other thing too is that, I mean, as you know from working with 8x10, depth of field is very limiting at times. There's a lot of things that simply are not possible. Like if I want to photograph a particular scene and there's two very important elements in that scene, I can maybe get those two elements in good focus, but at the expense of some other parts of the image that might be a little blurry as a result. But learning to embrace those imperfections and not have to strive to have everything perfectly technically sharp, everything perfectly polished. So I think 8x10 also has a bit of that forcing you to embrace the imperfection of it, which leads to a higher satisfaction with one's work and not trying to like keep up with everything. I did a little while back, about 4 years ago, I bought a digital kit and figured I would use that for some experimenting a little bit for the sort of subjects that I really just can't really shoot on large format, maybe long lens stuff or whatever. And I ended up selling that kit a couple of years later because I found that I was just shooting the exact same subjects I would have shot with the 8x10 anyways. And there was one scene in particular I photographed on the digital, and then a year later I came back with the 8x10 and photographed it on the 8x10, and I like that photo better. So digital is great. I think it's a fantastic way to work. But one thing is that people who have worked with large format, I think they realize that there is something different there, which keeps them coming back. So at some point, I'll be forced to go to a digital setup, and it'll be great. I'll be happy with it. But until then, there's just something about working with 8x10, which is it's very rewarding. Yeah.
I've not gone 8x10 yet. I'm 4x5, but I'm going to go 8x10.
And I'm digital, so bugger a lot of you.
And if film goes, I will never pick a camera up again. I won't bother.
I think I'd be very happy. If I ended up having to, for whatever reason, work with, let's say, like, I don't know, like the Fuji medium format or something like that, I'd be happy with it. It would be different. I think I would take a lot of what I've learned by working with the 8x10 and I'd transition that over to working with digital. But I would feel like something's missing. There's something about the tangibility of having that transparency. This is something that is, if a person has worked with digital all their life and they've never looked at a large format transparency in a light box with a loop, it's pure magic. And there's no way that you can have that same experience by scanning that film or having a print of it. Just that original transparency in itself is a work of art. And it's such a unique experience to look at that. So
any transparency, any size though, Ben, it doesn't even have to be a 10.8, does it? I
No,
learned
like a 4x5
Right.
as well. Anything where you can
Yeah,
move the loop around. 35 millimeter, it's a little small to get that impact, but if it's a medium format or a 4x5 or whatever, yeah, anything you can move the loop around on and just explore it, it gives the feeling of being there.
and the colour,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
There you go. Listen, it's been absolutely bloody fantastic to pick your brains and hear your words of wisdom and stuff onto that. But before we finish, we have some questions that we sort of throw in at the end that's got bugger all to do with photography, but it's just a little insight into you.
Yeah.
And considering where you are in the world and stuff like that, we're going to change some of them to obviously fit with your style. So, snakes or spiders? Which
To me, in terms of which ones I like more?
Yes. I hate both, but you know.
I don't mind snakes. I like, if I see a snake, I'm like, cool, that's a snake. Spiders, not a fan. So I like snakes, not a fan of spiders. But for me with spiders, it's the webs. Like getting a face full of web, that's the part I hate the most. And this comes from, I haven't been doing jogging in the morning lately, but I'd go running in the morning. And we got these pretty big spiders here in San Diego that love to put these big webs out in the morning. You get a face full of those.
No.
Not great. Not great, no.
Do you have to check the toilet? Because when I lived over there, I was like, is it redbacks?
I don't know the name of them, but they are big red spiders.
Yeah, and like under the toilet seats and stuff like that. I mean, that was always
these ones are just like, they just like to be outside. But I don't have issues with spiders in my house or snakes. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I asked that question.
Yeah.
I hate both. Oh dear. What we got? Football or baseball?
I couldn't care about either. I'm not a sports person.
Okay.
In the past I've when I've watched now we're talking American football, or we're talking like everyone else in the world.
Football. Yeah, American football. Yeah, not
Yeah,
soccer.
I mean they make it where it can be exciting to watch. Baseball is slow, but baseball is more of just like you hear, like, baseball is something you hear on the radio, and you hear the commentary and the stories and all that sort of stuff, the long format sort of stuff. But I'm not a sports fan either way, so I'd say neither one. But if I had to choose, baseball maybe, but I don't know. I'm
I'm going to throw one at UFC.
Also not a fan. Just any of the sports stuff. I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me. Yeah.
That's fair dues.
Denny's or Burger King?
Wow. These are a lot of tough choices. I feel like I can't choose between them.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'd go Denny's every time just for the hash browns.
Denny's.
Yeah.
Denny's was great for breakfast.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know.
like
as I've gotten older, I've avoided any of the
okay.
the trash.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I've got one. I have got to go back to photography. I'm sorry. Velvia or Provia?
Provia. Velvia was good when it was good for certain things, but it was a difficult film. For a while, I shot Provia and Velvia side by side. I almost always chose Provia. Provia has less contrast, less saturation, but does well with long exposures. And even if Velvia looks better in a light box, by the time you scan it, Provia is usually your better option. So even though I can't get Velvia anymore, I had shifted away from it anyways. So I'm full on in the Provia camp. Yeah.
Ektachrome?
I've played with it a little bit, but I really should give it another try. I've heard it's great, but also it's very similar to Provia. So I've got something that's working pretty well.
I've found it's sharper.
Okay.
But
have you found the color difference to be?
I found the color actually I have actually found the color is very good. It's not overcooked. If I shoot a slide film, I will shoot Ektachrome. Having said that, for a project I've been doing recently, just to make it look very different, I've shot Velvia 100, and that's been
like that
like,
one.
whoa. But I'm trying to achieve something different, so I'm using the film stock to try and achieve that, you know. But it's not a film stock I would just go out and shoot for the sake of it. But I do like Ektachrome. I've got to be honest, and
cool.
It's the shadow and the contrast is pretty good in it as well. It's just a nice film.
Yeah, it's something I'll need to try again. Yeah.
Sandisk, did you say? Sorry.
Thanks, guys. Bring the tone back down again.
Yeah.
One last thing, and this is thanks to Paul for this one that started this last time.
Oh God!
What's your favourite biscuit?
My favorite biscuit?
Yeah.
Now, in the UK, biscuits are more of cookies, right?
Yeah. Okay. What's your favorite cookie? Yeah. Fair point.
I would say I guess chocolate chip. I guess. I mean, it's a good classic.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got anything that's better over there. I feel like we I don't know.
I'm not
I feel like you have better stuff
again.
sometimes.
I got
What's a
slated
biscuit over there then?
Well, you know,
a biscuit here would be like a little muffiny sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're gorgeous, mate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. I hope you
thank you.
enjoyed your time with us.
Yeah, it was fun.
And I'm sure everyone's going to love this show. So I can't thank you enough for coming on. And keep producing the great work. And honest, mate, inspirational. You inspired me, actually.
Oh, cool.
To do. No, you did. And I went through 5 years of not even picking a camera up, and maybe 4 years. And I was like, I've got to get my mojo back with this. So I did some research. I watched a couple of your videos, and I thought, I've got to go with large format. And I flogged I sold all of my digital kit, and I just went but you give me a bit of advice. And I've got to be honest, I went to Chardonnay because you wasn't shooting a Chardonnay at the time, was you? Yeah. By the way, was your Arca Swiss on a rail, or was it not on a rail?
It was on a rail, yeah.
I mean, even that. I mean, what a mission to carry that around. But these Chardonnays are excellent. Tim Parkin put me in touch with Chardonnay side of things, and I just wish I had a few quid spare that I could buy an Alpinist. Is it?
They're expensive.
They are expensive.
Yeah.
They really are expensive. But I've got my eye on something else. But we'll have a little look. But the Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all guilty of it.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, Ben.
Yeah. Really appreciate it. And look forward to seeing some more videos and entertainment. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Bloody hell. You know what got me about that interview was that bit about the YouTuber out researching him. I've been following him for years. It's just, I couldn't get over that when I suddenly looked him up when you sent all the information, and I was like, I know who that is. I mean, obviously he's got no clue who I am, but I've been following him for years. You know,
nice chap, isn't he?
Yeah, really nice, really nice, and he is really chilled.
He's very chilled.
Yeah, it just comes across. It's just nice. Like, well done, mate.
Very healthy man.
Yeah, you lot with all your fitness.
I never used to be like this, mate. Never used to be like this.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, this parrot hasn't shut up, has he, all day? Oh,
it's so cute. We've got to get a camera on that. I think we should do some little photos to go on the website. Yeah.
I'm amazed he don't swear, to be honest.
You need to get a photographer in. I tried to teach him swear words last time we were down. I've got to be honest. He didn't pick up on it, but I was trying.
No, I'm surprised living with me.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
Actually, that's a fair point. How has he not picked up on your swearing?
I have got no idea. I mean, he's a Cockney parrot, mine.
Yeah, he's got no hope, has he? Really? I mean, I'm super impressed. But you need to get a photographer in to take some nice photos of him so we can have them up on the thing.
Do you know what I've actually got some that I took of him in studio while he was walking around on a backdrop. So I'll ping him in on the next
yeah,
show.
we'll do that. We'll put it up so everyone can see who it is.
We'll introduce him. Yeah.
And I think you should do a little video just to introduce him and get him to talk to the camera and stuff.
He dances, maybe with the jig, because he likes a bit of music.
Jiggy with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I can see where he got that from as we joined this earlier in your life.
Yeah. Anyway, Ben, thank you so much for being on. It was a great show. I really enjoyed that episode. I've been looking forward to that one for a while, actually, because he's very talented. His work is superb. His attention to detail is very good, and the locations. I think because when I was out there in '97, just knowing the location or the state of Utah, the southern area. I mean, it's wild. It's wild as hell, you know.
Beautiful location.
It is a stunning place.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there is a lot to it, but it's how you make it look different to all the other parts, like Zion. You know, and he does a great job. So again,
one thing I am going to have to change for future stuff, not for future stuff, but intersperse, is it's all bloody large format. You lot are all clubbing up together against me.
Well, we are. You know, I'm trying to promote an art here. You know.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything.
I'm sure there are a couple of digital photographers we can get on.
There's got to be, yeah. I've got a few in mind, but I need to even that status quo out so that we appeal to the broader audience as well.
100%.
What else you got going on this week, mate? Anything good?
Just a bit of bird work, getting this Poland stuff sorted out. Just there's a lot of stuff in the background going on with this work I'm doing at the moment, and trying to get this exhibition sorted for 2025. So just working on that really, and I'm also sorting a trip out to Switzerland. So that's what I've been doing this week. Yeah.
Nice. Whereabouts?
Latterbrunnen. It's all to do with this Tolkien project I've been working on. So I'm going to Frierenberg, fingers crossed, and I'm going to be doing a couple of. I'm staying with a lady in Frierenberg who runs a college that comes out to see me every couple of years. So I'm going to be doing a talk at the college about environment and stuff like that, and also about the project, the Tolkien project. And then I'm going to head down to this area in Switzerland to try and tie up little bits and pieces of the Tolkien project. And I've not been to Switzerland before, so I'm quite looking forward to it, to be honest.
No, it's one place I haven't been. My house is named after Lake Lucerne.
Is it?
Switzerland? Yeah, it is, yeah. Oh, well.
Lake Lucerne, based in the West Midlands?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. Yeah. So, go figure.
I didn't even know Lake Lucerne was in Switzerland, Terry, so you've educated.
It is, yeah. Well, it's in Lucerne. It's got at the foot of the mountains. There's a village called Lucerne, or town, and this massive lake. And it's funny enough, one of my clients, one of their directors, lives in Lucerne, and I was like, bloody hell! I'd never heard of the place before, and then bought the house, and then obviously the client's working there as well. So I was like, yeah. Oh.
Well, once I've got my foot in the door over there, and I know where I am, we'll go over together, right?
Yeah, well, I've got to go over to just go and visit the lake. I mean, the house is named after it. I think it's really
yeah.
That's like, So it looks very picturesque.
I'm sure it. Switzerland is. I imagine it is very well kept. I'd imagine. One would imagine.
Yeah, I mean that's good. Yeah. So yeah, that's that'd be good. So you sound like you got a lot of bit on. It's about time you wrapping up this Tolkien project now.
No.
It's going on.
Hopefully, it all. Some of it hinges on this trip actually in November. So I need to get an idea of the topography, the landscape, what lighting directions, this, that, and the other, because it is really the last part, other than maybe taking a shot of a church in England.
Okay.
And then that will be about it, really.
Okay, so it's on a winning streak.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, I broke the back of quite a lot of it, and then it's on to this other stuff and just planning other things really for the future.
Nice.
So, yeah, hectic.
Brilliant.
Yeah, you?
Yeah, I've got meetings tomorrow actually regarding during lockdown. I started a homeless project thing, which was personal projects thing onto that, and that's progressed a little bit. We've done a few different things onto that as time's gone on, and we got another meeting about that tomorrow, which will be interesting to see what direction. Strange. I had loads of time, obviously during lockdown, to look at that sort of stuff and to do that. And time's not been my friend the last few years, with how busy we've been, and it's sort of gone away a little bit, but it's still out there doing quite well in that respect in terms of publicity and everything else for the cause. And it's so I'm going to talk tomorrow about potentially how else we can do stuff and bring some stuff into it, which would be quite nice.
Good.
Yeah.
It's always nice to do community stuff for the community, isn't it?
Yeah, you got to have a personal project, I think, in something. And I hadn't really stuck into anything for a few years, and I was missing it. And that's what that became. It's just my own little personal project. There's something, it's utilizing the skills that you've got, but doing something totally out of your comfort zone, because it just totally is. I mean, it opened my eyes up so much.
Oh, it's amazing. It's an interesting subject, shall we say.
Oh, there goes my phone. It was off. You know what? It's my wife giving me my her food order for tonight.
Oh, right. There you go, then.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just about to go and cook mine now.
Well, it looks like we're having Chinese, mate.
Oh, there you go.
We got rid of the kids. One's gone off to a festival, which is great. And the other's off at work. And it's, so.
Nice.
Yeah, no kids at home. Right. Takeaway.
There we are.
Perfect. Right, mate. We shall leave it there. And thank you everyone for staying with us.
Yeah.
And
hope
we
you
shall
enjoyed.
catch you on the next one.
Absolutely.